Okay, we're ready to get going. Good morning to where you are, Gordo. We have Gordon West, WB6NOA, is going to talk about the best of emergency communication. So tell us all about it.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and a very good afternoon to HAMCOM attendees. This is Gordo, WB6NOA, and we're going to be talking about emergency communications. But our focus on emergency communications among ham radio operators is more than your uniform and your ARRL, ARES patch, which indeed we've all worked hard to come up to the new wonderful standards that they've established. Um, we're actually bound by the FCC's rulebook, Part 97.1A, that says that one of our responsibilities as an amateur radio operator is the responsibility of being available for emergency communications. So there's really not much to look at on the screen, but I will tune you into some of the exciting traffic that brand new hams here on the West Coast on the air for the first week were overrun by a fire spreading on a remote island off the California coast called Catalina. And this is a brand new operator. And take a listen and hear the response from the net control.
6 MSI, Tango Shelter Delta. Fire is spreading over to Country Club Drive rapidly. 5 homes are in immediate danger. We need evacuation now of these homes. Copy that. Be advised that the Sheriff's Dispatch is activating the Cert team at this time.
Oh, did you hear that? The Sheriff's Dispatch is activating the Cert, Community Emergency Response Team. So we hope that as amateur radio operators, you're also working with your local community Cert director. Usually it's a city-run operation, and these Cert volunteers have their small little FRS radios, but for covering just a block or two, they're a great resource to get messages around the neighborhood. And as hams, we can tune into them on 462 megahertz.
The evacuations and the water company has been notified, also Public Works.
Well, as the fire continues to spread throughout Catalina Island, this brand new ham on 2 meters comes in with this report. Take a listen to
break. 4 homes on Country Club engulfed in flames. We require further resources, and we still have no water pressure at this time. Roll County Fire copy. Resources from the original fire ground are being redeployed to those areas. Helicopters are incoming to make water drops on those structures.
So, wow, ham radio played a very important part in getting messages to those fire personnel staging for the home fires that resources are coming. They could not have heard that any other way. Well, let's now go up to high frequency. And many of you I know on the East Coast, HamCon attendees are big on high frequency. And that was a wonderful review that Anthony did on all that HF is out there. But take a listen to Katrina and how the ham radio operators did a fabulous job of letting folks know that, hey, I've got a problem in my local neighborhood. This ham says it all.
Roger, we had about 3 inches of rain since last night. About 3 inches of rain since last night. We don't have any electricity. The whole block is out. And the winds, I'm estimating, we're gusting up over 50. We have broken branches lying around. And I wanted to say, I'm at 29 miles.
Oh, wow. Well, he was having some real problems, and no electricity. For all of us hams on each side of the coast, we should be prepared to operate for hours on either gelled batteries or other safe technology where solar power can keep you on the air, and you've got enough batteries so when the storm is raging, you're still on the air. So how's your batteries when the whole neighborhood goes out? Hopefully you are still on. Well, as Katrina was getting ready to come ashore in New Orleans, reported the hams, here's a ham in Slidell at the National Weather Service. His job was to, on 2 meters and 440, just be the liaison with the National Weather Service outpost in Slidell.
Okay, I'm getting a report from Alpha Delta 5, Delta Papa, that the National Weather Service in Slidell has lost all HF radio operations. Over.
Wow, they lost their HF. Now, HF is on a frequency near the shares frequency, but several of the hams that came over there were also members of the shares network, as well as other high-frequency emergency groups such as the U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary and Civil Air Patrol. So they were able to come up on frequency and work with the weather station to report that their own antenna system just blew away, including the roof off the weather building. As Katrina comes ashore, listen to this ham. He sounds a little...
Roger, he says he's losing trees. Trees going down at this time. Over.
Losing trees, you know it's a biggie. Then there was silence, and those of us here on the West Coast and you folks on the East Coast, there were several hours that we didn't hear anything, and the news reports were saying that it looked like the hurricane turned towards Slidell and New Orleans was spared. So we all just said, well, that's good. We heard it on the news. But listen to this one ham on 75 meters who drove to the top of a parking garage, put his big 75-meter antenna back on because the garage was low ceiling, but he was on the tip top. And he says what happens to New Orleans. Take a listen to this chilly.
New Orleans is shut down. New Orleans has got major destruction, and they've got the roof off the Superdome. They've got water in the business district. They've got, you probably know better from the national TV coverage than we do. We have no TV. All we have
all we have is ham radio. Now, also monitoring the ham bands on 14.325 is the National Hurricane Center.
We are transferring information to the National Hurricane Center, and that helps the forecasters to predict landfall and tracking of the hurricane. Okay, so with that said, are there any stations on the southwest coast of Florida that have hurricane strength winds?
So we hope that many of you on high frequency are working closely with your served agency. Maybe it's the American Red Cross and you've been trained by the American Red Cross. Maybe you have an assignment from your amateur radio emergency service work. Maybe it's a local city group that you're a member of. Or maybe you are a member of a large state group. You've got all the patches, you're all ready to go. But are you really ready? Are we really ready for the big one? Well, take a listen to this. It first starts out with an open microphone by a ham who just cannot believe what he is seeing. Take a listen to this open mic. This is the open mic until he finally is able to say something. He was absolutely without words.
The World Trade Center, tower number 1 is on fire.
The World Trade Center, number 1, is on fire.
The whole outside of the building was just a huge explosion. We have a number of floors on fire. It looked like the plane was aiming towards the building. Transmit a third alarm. We'll have the staging area at Vesey and West Street. Have the third alarm assignment go into that area. Second alarm assignment report to the building, okay?
Pretty darn hard to hear, But after a while, those operators, especially at the Red Cross just across the river in New Jersey, were doing an excellent job of being able to hear the incoming reports. And if that wasn't enough, ham radio played an important part in Washington, D.C. during the earthquake several years ago. Earthquake?
Horizontal motion lasted approximately 10-15 seconds. Very light. Over.
Well, I'm glad it was very light in Washington, although it did damage the monument. But what a deal. But again, it was ham radio and new ham radio operators with a 2-meter 440 radio with those reports. Now, out here in Southern California, we make up for those of you on the East Coast that don't get many earthquakes. We get them right here. And take a listen to what this one ham is reporting regarding the freeway.
KD6MVD for a damage report on a freeway.
VD, go ahead with the damage report on freeway.
Roger, 4 miles north of Devonshire on the 405. There's quite a bit of buckling in 2 different places. There's a lot of concrete up, so you got to go through there real slow.
Wow. The biggest earthquake we've had in the last decade was a Northridge earthquake, and it was centered in an area about 50 miles north of Los Angeles. So everybody thought, well, it's early in the morning, I'm still going to go to work because it looks like LA has no problems. So here's this ham driving down a freeway, and it's not quite daybreak yet. And so far, there was no reports of anything going on in LA after the Northridge earthquake until this.
Freeway 10, and what section?
That will be eastbound and westbound near Washington. The bridges are down.
What? Let's listen to that again, see if you can get the message.
That will be eastbound and westbound near Washington. The bridges are down. That will be eastbound and westbound near Washington. The bridges are down.
Wow, the bridges are down. 2 freeway bridges collapsed in an area 50 miles away from the earthquake. So you never know how important ham radio is going to be. And we hope all of you that have a mild drive-in time to work monitor a certain frequency, maybe 5.2 simplex, as Anthony earlier was talking about, because you can get some good local reports there. Now, we know that earthquakes travel at the speed of sound in a solid, which is a lot slower than the speed of light, which ham radio travels. So here are hams talking, going, man, I felt it about 3 minutes or 2 minutes after that station 100 miles away on 75 meters reported it. And I felt it about 5 seconds later after a station locally reported it.
The quake was felt first in Westchester, then it was felt a few seconds later in Thousand Oaks. A report on from 80 meters, WD60XM. WD60 at El Segundo. You know what I mean? Okay, the El Segundo station. Westchester, east to west, over.
Wow. So just amazing that you could be in contact with a ham. And he said, oh my gosh, a big earthquake just hit. And if you're within 100 miles, you're probably going to feel it about 10 to 20 seconds later. So you never know how ham radio is going to play a very important part during earthquakes.
In Long Beach, it lasted several seconds. We had a couple things fall down, and the bird went crazy.
Oh, the bird went crazy.
Well, this is starting from I've down here for years. Sort of an east-west, but some vertical motion. And there was 2 peaks, a little bit at first, then a big peak, and then it almost died down, and it hit it harder for the second time.
So with ham radio, you can almost tell where that earthquake was by the reports that were coming in. Well, those of you on the West Coast where we're located this morning, we always pay attention to the major earthquakes that occur in Japan. And the Japan earthquakes a few years ago that destroyed their nuclear reactors, that whole area, generated a tsunami. And tsunami waves are not like breakers that come in, but it's rather like here comes a very high tide over and over again. And tsunami waves travel 300 to 400 miles an hour, but not at the speed of light. So take a listen when this one ham who was predicting the tsunami going to hit Hawaii, listen to what happens when it hit Hilo. Take a listen to this.
Just an update from the Big Island of Hawaii. It's been reported that the water is receding in Hilo too, on the breakwater, as well as at a couple of the beaches. So I just passed the information along. I'm on the southern end, and that's the report from Hilo, Hawaii. That's an FK6RC.
Well, when the served agency overheard this call, they immediately got on their radio system and told the lifeguards to get down to the beach safely and do a broadcast. Don't walk out following the ocean that's receding, because in about 5 minutes, you're going to be wiped out when the big tsunami's coming in. They saved many lives thanks to ham radio. Well, ham radio many times will, with repeaters, it'll just be a normal day until someone comes in with an emergency. Here's a new operator that's reporting. Well, you take a listen and you'll hear it loud and clear on the ham radio 2-meter FM band. Take a listen to this.
Oh my gosh, there's a school bus with kids on it, and it's 50 yards south of Falls Canyon on Avalon Canyon Drive.
Report from ham operators at scene on the number of patients that might be involved at the fire. Would you check with our hospital resources and advise them of the number of casualties and be advised?
So this was a isolated case of a school bus full of kids, actually, and adults. It was part of a field trip, and luckily, one of the hams is a member of the field trip crew, and the bus overturned, pinned one fellow's arm under the bus, and it was quite a serious deal. But it was ham radio that was first to spread the emergency message, where ham radio operators were immediately calling the local sheriff to investigate this. Falls Canyon Road was the location, and they were able to get to it fairly quickly. But then listen to this. For the one fellow who had suffered a major arm getting squashed by the bus, they needed some medication.
We've got need some medication for one of our car victims, and want to know if you have 5 milligrams of amlodipine acetylate. I spell.
5 milligrams of what? Let's try that one again.
I want to know if you have 5 milligrams of amlodipine acetylate. I spell.
So the ham is going to spell it. Thank goodness.
Alpha, Mike, Lima, Oscar, Delta, India, Papa, India, November, Echo. Next word. Bravo, Echo, Sierra, Yankee, Lima, Alpha, Tango, Echo. 5 milligrams.
So that went to a ham operator that staged at the local, very small hospital in this rural area, and was able to confirm that, yes, they had the medication that they're going to be needed when this patient comes in via ambulance. Well, as they were looking at the school bus, trying to figure out how it veered to turn over, the ham that was leading things, well, listen to this report when the ham said, I wonder how this school bus crashed with all these kids. He looked over this, or she looked over the side.
The bus collided with a car that we just discovered halfway down the hill at Falls Canyon and Avalon Canyon. It is overturned on the south side of Avalon Canyon Drive. 2 occupants are trapped. We need the jaws of life. Both occupants are alive but severely injured. W6KLX.
Wow. So that started then even more resources heading to the scene. But wait a minute, could the hospital actually handle this? Because it's right at the beginning of the COVID crisis. So let's find out.
Hospital is near capacity with ER teams still able to take unrelated cases.
So good. They're still able to take unrelated cases. So again, ham radio in this rural area really saved the day. Many times for those high frequency operators listening in on 14300, that's where we monitor all the time on this gear back there. That's the channel for maritime mobile stations. Listen to this one relay of what a call he had received from Sri Lanka. Wow.
Sri Lanka reports 31,000 casualties with ocean waters covering all southern and eastern coastlines. The estimate is 800,000 homeless and in need of medical supplies. Ham radio operators needed immediately with high-frequency radios.
The American Radio Relay League has a cache of HF radios for emergency responders that through their ARES program, and they do a fabulous job of helping with these widespread disasters. Well, those of you on the East Coast, I was there just a couple of days later and saw the effects of Superstorm Sandy. Listen to Sandy.
The hurricane will reach the coast early on Thursday. Maximum sustained winds are near 135 miles per hour.
Maximum wind 135 miles per hour.
With higher gusts, some fluctuation in intensity.
Wow. And of course, with wind at 135 knots, think about what I saw, all the subways because of the huge amount of surge. Listen to this report.
And your storm surge is greater than 6 feet and hard to measure. QSL?
Wow, greater than 6 feet on the surge and hard to measure. So Hurricane Sandy was of a huge wake-up call for those on the East Coast that for almost a year had not seen a lot of anything major. Well, they did there. Well, now let's go back to Katrina, and here's a ham that had a Kenwood D72. This is an APRS radio, and it's important because the U.S. Coast Guard was going in on calls to help elderly evacuate from some of the homes that were overrun by the Katrina high water surge. And it was through APRS that hams could communicate with a net control that would then pass the information to the helicopters by the Coast Guard.
The Coast Guard was sending somebody in there as soon as they could expedite that. Roger?
Yeah, but where are they? Well, they're at 3rd and Bourbon Street. There's no more signs to say where 3rd and Bourbon Street is. Maybe more info?
I want the net to know that the 21 people at Fair Street has been received by the Coast Guard, and they are acting on it. No calls on that one. That is done, Dave.
So good training would be using API to spot your own position and be able to relay your latitude and longitude. But remember, latitude and longitude in degrees, minutes, and did you say seconds or did you say fractions of a minute? There are still agencies using one or the other. So you need to find out how they're going to read your latitude and longitude in degrees, minutes, and seconds or fractions of a minute. Get that down ahead of time before you start calling in latitude and longitude. And here's one more call with Latlon, where in New Orleans, the hurricane had caused a lot of folks to be stuck.
Anybody in New Orleans can report or get some action for these people stuck on the roof. That was the request from Net Control.
So Net Control was wanting someone with a GPS to go over there and say exactly where can the Coast Guard via their GPS home in and get these folks off the roof. Now, New Orleans was really hurting after Katrina.
Yeah, if anybody in New Orleans can help these people, is there anybody I can relay? I heard somebody. Come now.
So a lot of the distress calls will be on high frequency, 75 meters, 40 meters. Much of it will be on 2 meters 440, DMR, WinLink, EchoLink, D-Star, all of these digital modes also important because many times the American Red Cross may want to pass some not critically confidential information. They'll never pass patient names and so on. But the Red Cross may say, can you give me a shelter update as to the number of clients in the shelter? And many times this is now handled via digital so that not anybody and everybody can tune in. But for the hams, it gives them a great, accurate, printable piece of paper that they can give to the shelter manager. FEMA many times will be in the area. Sometimes FEMA will operate on their own FEMA frequency.
Golf Yankee 960, was that you or the FEMA van? Come now, over.
And the FEMA van might be on one of the 5 megahertz shared channels that we share with the military. So something to think about is your high frequency mobile radio, does it have 5 megahertz capabilities? And do you have a 5 megahertz ham stick? Now, as the hurricane rages on, the big deal is generators and
Tell
fuels.
the crews that come, if they're coming to work on the towers, that they will need generators and fuel for the generators. And basically, they're in essence hitting the beach with no facilities to support them. No facilities to support them. Recommend they bring all of their own food and all of their own creature comforts. QSL.
So, as you could hear today, ham radio plays a very important part in emergency communications. And it may not be just all of the gear that you have amassed, all of your qualifications with patches down one side and the other, but how much training you've had in passing traffic phonetically and accurately, being able to go into an EOC and at the ham station within the EOC, be able to compose a WinLink message to be able to get it onto an alternate internet site far from you, either on HF or on VHF, UHF. So the rule book is clear that we are recognized for our capabilities to handle communications in an emergencies. You all know that with the many storms you've had on the Northeast, that many of the cell sites do withstand the wind and the rain and the storm. But after about 2 days or 3 days, the inability to give them more diesel fuel for their emergency generators, they go off the air. And this is where ham radio plays an important part. So I encourage all of you to continue to work closely with the American Radio Relay League's ARES program, a new program where you'll take additional training that is great training for all. So this is Gordo on the West Coast. I'm right up against the time that I've got to do another club meeting in another part of the country. So I'm going to bid you all farewell and turn you back to Net Control Mitch and let Mitch go ahead and finalize it. But again, so good to be able to see all of the guests that have checked in the HamCon today. And now we're back on schedule. And the next guest will be coming on shortly. And that next guest is Joe. He's the one that's going to help you learn all about soldering and soldering irons and kit building. He's the man. So 73 from Gordo, WB6 November Oscar Alpha. Frequency's clear. Joe, it's up to you. Take it away.
Show's not scheduled for half an hour. Whoops. I don't think Joe's scheduled for half an hour.
Well, Paul, sounds like you have to present for the next half hour.
Now unmute again. I don't have anything to present. I just came over here from the spy one, and it was ending. It said he was going to go till 3.
Well, if
But
you want
he had another club meeting to go to.
Gordo here. That was for Joe, who was NEB, who was going to do the kit building. Was he not following me?
Yeah, he's following you at 3. You were scheduled to go to 2:55.
Oh, I didn't get that note. I just know we started a half hour late. So I can take questions if someone wants to direct them my way. I've got about 10 minutes before I do need to get to my next talk.
Who else? Where are you talking next?
I'm doing a talk to a Cert group out of the area on Zoom.
Oh,
And
okay.
I'm sorry. I guess I
Put your
didn't.
video back up.
Okay.
There we go. I'd like to see the flashy lights. So anyone with any questions? This is the guy who writes the book. You know, when you're studying to be a technician, you're probably reading his book or whatever. So he has all the wisdom that you need to be a ham.
All right. Any questions on emergency comms? Gordo here.
So I have a question. Where's most of the emergency communications take place? Is it on UHF, VHF, FM, DMR? Is there a place where it tends to be more than others?
All right, Mitch. Well, I'm going to jump out of here then. Sorry, I didn't get your latest schedule. I had the one with me ending at 2:25, so I thought I better stay on sched.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Okay. So I just was asking you where you are. Where does most of the activity take place for emergency communications? Were you able to hear the question?
No, I did not hear it.
Okay, so where does most of the activity take place? Where you are in Southern California, where they do emergency communications, is it on VHF, UHF, DMR, FM? Is there a preference?
Okay, and that's a great question. No, I didn't hear it direct, but the communications with the American Red Cross takes place on WindLink. And because we have such excellent cell coverage here in Southern California, it's mainly long lists that they compose over WindLink. Not a lot of coordination using voice, but when they do voice, many times they will do DMR, or they will do one of the other Fusion or D-Star digital modes, just to somewhat keep casual listeners from not being able to hear everything. But again, they would never, ever pass any confidential traffic over the ham radio bands. Absolutely verboten. On major earthquakes, we first hear about them locally on 2-meter repeaters. We originally had from Caltech a tone that we would tune into. We would then notch the tone via automatic notch filter on our VHF radio, multi-mode VHF radio, not a common dual bander, but a multi-mode with sideband and so on. And when the notch was filtered out, you were good until you heard it warbling, and that means Caltech was picking up an earthquake. Well, unfortunately, they've gone now with a cell phone, and we find that hams are on the air exchanging reports even before our cell phone earthquake alert device goes off. So it's pretty remarkable, but Southern California does have an extensive and a good operating cell phone system if people sign up for the earthquake alert. alerts. There are some high frequency operations, but usually the emergencies are maritime mobile, or those emergencies in foreign countries without a good cellular or internet connection. So high frequency. And we're finding many of the mariners these days are indeed adding satellite communications when they're far out at sea to stay in touch with loved ones. But what they're missing on satellite and their hams is that they don't get that camaraderie among fellow sailors in the area. So that's why ham radio, just for morale purposes, is important while hiking on a soda adventure up to the top of a mountain. Gosh, if I slip, is there anybody here to help me? Yeah, in the palm of your hand, you got your radio. They're there. So it's always a good plan, no matter what your adventure is going to be, is have a plan where you know folks will be looking for you on a certain frequency. So I've got to now do my cert thing, but a pleasure seeing all of you. And thank you again for having me on board at your East Coast HamCon, and just wish you the very best of success. So Gordo going QRT on your
Thanks,
phone.
Gordo. Thanks, Gordo 73.